Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rags to Riches podcast. This is going to be episode one, and my name is Andre. If you don't know me, I'm an IT professional. I've been working in IT for over 20 years. I moved to the United States of America in 2014, and I was working at Geek Squad in the retail, and then I moved from retail over to the enterprise level of support, and things are done a little bit differently over there. I spent quite a few years in leadership, and today I want to just discuss with you how I go through my interview process when it comes to hiring IT technology professionals. For those of you who are tuning in and you're wondering what I'm going to be talking about tonight, going to be geared towards leaders, persons that are looking to set up job interviews and hire the right persons for the environment. And we're also going to touch on the other side of that, which is going to be for persons that are actually looking for work in the IT industry, right? My skill set is primarily surrounding break fix support. So all of the questions and the formats of the interviews that I discussed today are going to be geared around break fix, which is going to be a key component of support when you're talking about enterprise level. You get this kind of support with service desks, technology help bars, stuff like Apple Genius bars is going to be a little bit similar to that. And I'm just gonna run through, first how I structure my interviews, and then I'm gonna go through the questions that I ask during the interview process, and then tell you some of the things that I look for in order to, hire the right individuals. All right, let's get to it. So we're gonna first talk about the interview structure. So leaders, tune in if you're a new team lead. I know for me, I started out as a technician and I worked my way into management, which is a little bit different for people that just come straight in with management experience. So there was a lot that I had to learn and a lot of systems that I needed to build out. So if that's you and you're a technology professional and you want to get into leadership, this information is going to be good. So let me talk about the structure for a little bit. So when I set up my interviews, it's kind of like a two-part. My first part is going to be simply an assessment test, right? Why I like the assessment test is it helps me save time. It narrows down the results, especially when you're working in an environment where you get a lot of interviews. It helps you to really pick out good qualified candidates at the get-go without having to go through an interview process. So we set up the assessment test. So anyone that is coming into the company wanting the job with us, they're required to take the assessment test. From there, I would review the assessment test and pick out the person's really highest scores. Is like a no-brainer. It helped me to reduce my interview times because at the level that I was working at that time, busy fellow, lot of projects, managing a team of about 55 to 60 people. So I wanted to make sure I'm capitalizing the best on my time. So assessment tests helped me to do that. Next up, it helps me to maintain a predefined knowledge expectation. In other words, having a subset of employees who are all generally around the same skill set in terms of technical ability, right? That's what the assessment test is really supposed to do, just to help me, three things: narrow down suitable candidates from a huge pile of resumes, speeds up the interview process, reduce interview times in general, and then helps me to maintain a predefined knowledge standard or expectation of the persons who are going to be joining my company. Next up, once you get through the interview, once you get through the assessment test process, we're going to be doing 30-minute panel interviews, right? Why I like panel interviews: one, it helps with team building and development. Two, it helps with collaboration. Three, it empowers the employees around you to make decisions in the environment, because growth is all about making the right decisions and giving employees opportunity to make decisions and be part of decision making processes really helps develop employees. And lastly, it helps with career growth and development for persons that are looking for that next step, looking to gain experience, looking to build their resumes. I'm all about growing from within, because that's technically what I did, right? I started out as a technician with a company and I grew within there, and I went through IT operations manager, senior IT operations manager, service delivery manager, and now I am doing data governance. So I am all about empowering employees to build themselves, because obviously better employees equal better businesses equal better results. Pretty simple and straightforward, right? So on my panel interview, when it was service delivery manager, I had a couple team leads who I would make sure at least two of my team leads attend, and then a couple senior employees who are well versed in technology, right? Again, this is just my approach, right? Don't feel like this is going to be hard set in stone that every interview that you have is going to be set up with this way, but this is a good building block to start, right? All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up some interview questions, go through the three or four different categories that I pick questions from. Not going to do all the questions, but I'm just going to give you kind of a rough idea of kind of the questions that I ask and some of the responses that I'm looking for, so that you are better able to, ace that job interview and get that IT job that you wanted, right? All right, so I'm going to run through this real quick and just kind of keep it as real as possible. I have a few different sections for questions where I pull from. I'm going to just give you those main topics right now. I ask a few general IT questions, and then I ask some specific questions towards certain operating systems, certain devices, and really testing certain capabilities. Then I do some situational type questions, and I also do behavioral questions, right? So let's start off with the IT questions, right? So one question I might ask a person is going to be, tell me, how do you keep your IT knowledge and skills current? Now, this isn't going to be a right or wrong answer. Here, what I'm looking for is, this is kind of like an icebreaker question. Kind of want to see how well you communicate as an individual and how you carry on a conversation, as well as gauge your level of interest in information technology. The information technology space is a strange one. And when you look at, there's sometimes people that think because they know how to use a computer that they're computer IT experts, right? We're looking for a little bit more than that. So being able to speak to how you keep your IT knowledge and skills current shows your passion, and it shows the kind of things that you're into, the kind of interests that you may have with different aspects of technology. Once I get through that question, it's another kind of conversational type of question, trying to figure out, hey, tell me, what areas do you consider yourself to be an expert, right? So what I'm looking for here is, like, is a person really good at Windows? Is a person really good at Mac? The environment that I'm in is kind of like a 50-50 split of Windows and Mac, all depending on where you are actually located. But again, just trying to get a feel for you. I like to call these icebreaker questions. And then my last icebreaker question is going to be, what kind of ticketing programs are you familiar with? Now, I know there's a lot of people that may be moving from the retail space. Like me, I was originally at Best Buy. So I was moving from a retail space and then moved into the enterprise environment, where it was a little bit different, where there's a lot of ticketing programs and application. There's a lot more structure in terms of how people's problems are handled, and people's problems are handled generally using tickets, and these tickets are entered into systems such as ServiceNow, Remedy, Jira. I can go on and on the list. There isn't going to be a right or wrong answer here. Just kind of looking to see what level of skills or experience that you may have. If a person says, hey, I'm not familiar with ticketing programs, I work in retail or I work in a small computer repair shop, I'm not going to hold it against them, right? Because again, they probably have really good scores in the assessment tests. And I understand that in certain instances, everything isn't going to be applicable in a given situation. So moving on, next I'm going to have some Mac questions. I'm going to ask some simple stuff like, how do you get to the boot menu on a Mac? How do you get to recovery mode on a Mac? Those type of questions. Generally, here I'm just looking to see if there's any consistency or any deviation from the results of the tests and the person's actual knowledge. Because you may have situations where, people may have used Google when they were doing the tests. People may have had someone do the test for them. I know I try my best to give people the benefit of the doubt, but in order to hire the best talent, you still have to make sure that you're keeping them sharp, you're keeping them on the toes, and you're really trying to get to know this person's skills. So I asked a few questions like that. I'm not going to spend too much time there. Another one I might ask is, could you tell me how to perform an SMC reset on a Mac? If you can, then it would follow up with, hey, what are some of the things that you would use an SMC reset for when troubleshooting devices, right? So you could kind of get the gist of where I'm going. Again, I don't spend too much time here because the assessment test does a lot of heavy lifting for me. But again, I just want to make sure that I'm seeing, some sort of consistency between the results that you get and the answers that I kind of test you with on the fly. Similar vein, when you're talking about PC questions, one of the PC questions that I like to ask is, do you have any experience with Active Directory? If they don't have any experience with Active Directory, I would ask if they can tell me some of the things that Active Directory is used for in an enterprise environment. Some of the answers could be for that question. It is used to manage user accounts. It's used to manage passwords. It's used to manage computers on a network, that kind of stuff. So even if you're not in it and you can give me those kind of answers, you've been in, right? So have your technical knowledge on point. Next up, I'm going to throw in a few mobile questions just to figure out what your level of skill is going to be when it comes to Android and iOS devices. How do you restore iPhone to factory? How do you tell what version of iOS is running on a phone? And then lastly, I would ask you about mobile device management, because at the enterprise level, you're going to have a lot of mobile device management in your environment. So any person that can say or tell me what that kind of stuff is, they're going to have a leg up on the person that doesn't know. But again, I don't hold this against anyone because, in the IT space, everyone may not necessarily be exposed to the same things. What I'm looking for again is knowledge of and how your skills translate into being able to use those applications in the environment. And again, sorry, I may not have mentioned this earlier. My team also would have either the same questions that I'm asking, or I empower them to kind of build their own list of questions and look for the things that they would want to see in a teammate, right? So these are not hard and fast questions. I like to involve my team because there's a lot of creativity and when we work together, everything is always better, right? So we're talking behavioral questions now. One example of a behavioral question that I would ask is, tell me about a time when it was particularly difficult for a caller or end user to explain a problem to you, and then how were you able to work with that person to gain an understanding and agreement on the problem that they are having. This is a very, very key question, especially if you're looking at service desk where you're taking calls by phone, or you're working at a help desk and people are walking up with specific issues. Gaining an understanding of a person's problem is going to be important, as well as how you get to that point. Sometimes getting to that point can be a little hostile, especially if a person is, kind of riled up. Their technology isn't working. They may be in a rush. They may have deadlines. It's a hard conversation to have. They may have just lost their data. How do you diffuse that? How do you show active listening? How do you communicate and show understanding of specific issues? Because the only way to solve the problem is going to be to have a very good understanding of what's actually wrong. So these are not necessarily right or wrong questions, but it really shows your character and how you deal with difficult situations. Next up, I may say, give me an example of a time when you had to simplify complex information and explain it to a caller or end user. Now, tech people are tech people, right? And sometimes we can be really super technical and nerdy about stuff. And we speak to people, and sometimes we forget that everyone isn't going to be as technically savvy as we are, which means there's going to be confusion, misunderstanding, and frustration. So being able to break down complex terms into very simple terminology for people is going to be key when working in a help desk, service desk scenario, right? So be able to give good examples of times where you had difficult situations and you were able to diffuse those situations, or times where you were able to you know break down something super nerdy and put it real simple. Another one I may ask is, tell me about a problem that you had to solve that really pushed your technical and analytical abilities. Again, not right or wrong, just trying to get a feel for your critical thinking skills, your problem thinking skills, and how you approach difficult situations. Because it's going to be very important when you're looking at break fix support, especially if you're working in a situation where you are the only one available and there may not be a knowledge base or a person that you can tap on, and you have to deal with this brand new issue all alone. Those are going to be key things for me when I'm looking for hiring employees to join my team. I'm not necessarily going to ask all these questions. I pick one or two. And again, it's only a 30-minute interview. There's 4 other people on my panel, but I just wanted to give you guys a rough idea of kind of some of the questions that will be asked in most job interviews, especially in the information technology space, when you're talking about help desk support and service desk. Next up, I may move into some situational type questions, where I would paint a scenario and have you respond to that scenario. One example would be a user is sending their job to a network printer. They receive no errors when they click print, but when they get to the printer, the job is not there. Could you walk me through how you would troubleshoot that issue? So I generally don't do trick questions. I wouldn't consider this to be a trick question because there's so many different avenues to get to a result. Because no two problems are going to be the same, right? You could have a person that says, "Well, hey, I'll check to see if the printer has paper in it." They may have the person that says to me, I'm going to check the queue to make sure that the printer was sent to the correct. Sorry, I'm going to check the queue to make sure that the print job was sent to the correct printer. That really demonstrates a level of critical thinking that I'm impressed with. As simple as it may seem, right? Checking to see where the print job actually went. Obviously, checking to see if the printer has paper in it is not a wrong answer. But when you're looking at trying to discover a person's analytical skills and how a person's brain ticks, that one kind of really perks me up and be like, oh well, good. He knows what he's talking about, right? Like he knows specific things. Then there may be, or he or she really, sorry. Then it may be a situation where another person might said, well, I may reset the print spooler, right? These people are demonstrating advanced knowledge of a situation. Obviously, it's good to keep things simple, but I love to hear those types of answers. Another one that I like to ask would be, tell me one technical aspect of something that you see in the IT world as a problem and how you would improve on it. Here, what I'm looking for is basically your ability to critique something in a positive way. One, to kind of see what you're passionate about and what you're interested in and what your loves are, right? Because again, in the view, I'm trying to get to know you, who you are as an individual, and if you would be a good fit for my team. And not only that, it's easy to be critical of something. It's even harder though to actually provide a solution, because you may have situations where people are overly critical. People say this thing sucks, that thing sucks, but can you provide a viable solution to your the problem that you're critiquing? Let me call it that. The person that can demonstrate their passion for a specific area of IT and can tell us why they love something, identify areas for improvement, and tell us why, or not tell us why, tell us what they would do to improve that situation. That's a winner. That's a winner right there, right? Another kind of situational question that I might ask, I might say, imagine I'm a 10-year-old. Could you explain to me what the cloud is? And I want to see what would you do given a specific situation, how you're going to explain something that could be explained away in a very technical term and break it down real simple. This is a fun question too. This question usually gets me a lot of laughs, and we kind of have a good time with this question. Next up, I would keep it simple again. Explain what steps you would use to troubleshoot a laptop that does not power on. Or I might say something like, what steps would you take to troubleshoot a Windows 10 device that has a red X over the Wi-Fi? Really, really looking for your problem solving skills, as well as your social skills here. One of the things that I will say, especially for me personally, I believe that it is harder to teach a person the appropriate social skills versus teaching a person technical skills, right? So, from my point of view, I may look at a person's assessment test. Let's say they score maybe 70%, and there may be a person that take the assessment test, and let's say they may have scored 80 or 90%. But when it comes time to the interview, their responses kind of show that while they may be super technically savvy and know their stuff, they may not necessarily have the social skills needed to work in a high pace, high pressure environment where people are coming up to you frustrated with their problems or whatever the case would be. So, not saying that I would choose one or the other, just saying I lean more into social skills, and that also helps me decide where a person would be placed. Because I generally, you know, easiest way to put this is that you got to make sure a person is on your right seat on the bus, right? You don't want to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, that kind of thing. So if I know a person is super technically savvy and they may not be the most social or customer facing person, that person may as well be a good fit for the hardware repair department, where they don't generally interact with people other than teammates. And then it will have a person that's working at the tech bar who would be what we would call front facing. Those are where the social skills come in. So I may lean more towards, okay, this person might be better for hardware repair, this person might be better for tech bar. And that's just based on my current situation, right? Your situation may be a little bit different for those leaders who may be hiring. They may not be, customer facing. It may be phone. But I kind of lean into those social skills a lot, because I don't believe that they're easily taught versus being able to teach someone technical skills. So I may come across a candidate who is fresh out of college and has some technical skills but has some really good social skills, and they can carry on a conversation, they can diffuse difficult positions. They're going to get the job, and I'm going to train them to be stars, right? To be star boys and star girls, as I would put it. So just a little thing to note there. That's it as far as questions go. What I want to talk about now, kind of wrap it up. Don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm going to talk about some do's and don'ts, because there's some other aspects that go into the interview that may not necessarily come out in the questions, but it may come out in the way how you present yourself, right? Some people show up sloppy. That's the best way you can call it. Show up sloppy. Luckily for me, the environment that I worked in is more of a casual type setting, so I don't expect persons coming to the interview wearing a tie and a button-down shirt, or maybe a jacket or a three-piece suit. However, I do expect that you kind of look the part, right? You kind of if you put on a nice polo shirt, some people may come in some grungy t-shirts and stuff like that. Those are all kind of red flags to me. So show up less sloppy. Not saying that you have to be fully formal, but within reason. Know your audience, know the company that you're applying for, learn about the culture, learn about the dress code, so that when you show up, you kind of fit in. So let's say, for example, if you're applying to work at a place like Nike or Adidas, so obviously if you're applying to work at Nike, don't show up in an Adidas t-shirt, and vice versa. If you're applying to work at Adidas, don't show up in a Nike t-shirt. That's kind of an example of being sloppy, right? Sloppy doesn't necessarily mean how you look, but you know, being able to recognize the role, being able to recognize the company, and being able to do something that sets you apart from the rest, right? So if you show up for a Nike interview in Nike gear, I can tell you right now, you halfway to getting the job, right? Just a quick tidbit there. Another thing that I would avoid is talking politics and weighing in on social issues. You don't want to rub people the wrong way. You are not sure who you are talking to. You are not sure what the person in front of you believes in, and this goes for leaders as well as people are interviewing jobs. Try to keep it as neutral as possible, right? You don't want to rub people the wrong way because you could be a perfectly good candidate, deserving of the job, and choose the wrong political party. These things happen, right? So keep your politics, keep your social justice kind of out of the conversation, because you can be talking to someone that believes the total opposite of what you do. I've had situations where I've interviewed with people who made assumptions based on, what the audience may or may not have looked like, and they said some things and the audience was like, well, wow, I couldn't believe that person said that. And this doesn't mean that you are a bad person, but you know in a job interview, you're trying to win the hearts and the minds of the people that you're interviewing with, so try your best to keep it as neutral as possible. Next thing I'm going to say, try to avoid speaking poorly or ill of former co-workers and former companies. Another red flag. It's gonna make people wonder, well, hey, is this a disgruntled employee? Why does he feel so strongly about his previous company, right? Is that person, when they hire that person, are they gonna kind of get so strongly or vehemently opposed to our organization if things don't always go their way? And I get it. There's some situations where you may be working for an employer who, for lack of better words, may be a trashy employer. They may treat people poorly. They may have poor working conditions or the like, but it's not a good look when you kind of trash talking someone else, your previous manager, your previous co-workers, or your previous company. So simply just try to avoid it altogether. Last one is going to be, before I wrap it up, because these things happen, right? I'm not just saying this because these are things that happen in interviews, on both ends. It happens in interviews when I was interviewing for jobs, and it happened in interviews where people were interviewing with me and my team for jobs, right? We once had a situation where you could tell that the person, because obviously now since COVID, a lot of Zoom interviews happen. There's not a lot of in-person interviews. I know a lot of even for my last job, although I was working on site, my interviews happen over Zoom. So on to the point. Don't Google the answer while you're on a Zoom call. We can tell that you're Googling the answer. We've had that situation multiple times. And it just kind of raises questions like, the first question is going to be, does this person think that I'm stupid, right? Like, you ask a person on a Zoom call a question, and they say, "Oh well, 1 second, that this has happened." 1 second, and dude just start. You could hear the keyboard clacking away. You can see that his eyes are no longer focusing the camera, and he's looking at the web page that he just pulled up to be able to answer that question. It's better to say that you don't know. It's better to say that you don't know and demonstrate how you would get to that answer. So even if I were to ask you a difficult question and you say, well, hey, Andre, I don't know the answer to that, but what I would do is I would check the knowledge base, I would check Google, I would check forums. Those are all relevant answers to a question when you don't know the answer, right? It's not always about knowing the correct answer in an interview. When you're having a job interview, your goal is to demonstrate how your skills translate into adding value to the company that you are looking to join. I'll give you an example, and then I'll call it good for this first episode. So right now I am in data governance, right? I have certifications all the way up to ITIL Master. When you're talking about IT Service Management and ITIL, great. All those certifications locked in, tons of experience locked in. And the interviewer, one of the questions the interviewer asked, because one of the requirements was being able to script in SQL. I don't know how to script in SQL. So I'm not going to bullshit that question, for lack of better words, right? I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be transparent. I have tons of experience reporting within ServiceNow, right? I run reports weekly. I present information on those reports weekly to leadership and senior leadership. So how do my skills translate into SQL scripting? So I'm being perfectly honest. I have lots of experience reporting. I understand what SQL is at a basic level, but I do not have too much experience writing SQL scripts. However, I can guarantee you that I can pick it up really quickly because of my experience with reporting. The interviewer said, you know what? Don't worry about that, Andre. We see that as an opportunity for growth. So don't always think that you have to know the answer. Don't always think that in a situation where you are having an interview and you have to say that you don't know, it means that you're not going to get the job. Have confidence within yourself. Keep the eyes on the prize. And the prize is demonstrating how your skills and experience in your past jobs will bring and add value to this new organization that you're willing to join. And on that note, I'm going to thank you guys for joining the first episode of Rags to Riches, where we discuss job interviews and how to make yourself a little bit more competitive in the super competitive world of IT. Trust me when I tell you, sometimes it's real hard to get the specific job that you want in IT. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. And if you want me to expand on some of the things that I talk about today, leave a comment. Let me know what you're interested in. Let me know what I can do to provide value and to help you get to where you want to go. You can find me on LinkedIn, Andre Waterman. And obviously, if you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. And thank you so much for tuning in.